Hello, boys and girls. We're back again for another story from Taylor's Bible Storybook. Today, we're going to do story number 27, which is Jacob Blesses His Children. Jacob lived in the land of Goshen with his children and their families for 17 years, but at last the time came for him to die. He became very sick, and a messenger came to tell Joseph that his father was getting worse and that he wouldn't live much longer. So Joseph took his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, and went to visit his father. Jacob sat up in bed, and he talked with him, and he told him how kind God had been to him all during his long life, and that he told Joseph about the time when God had spoken to him in a dream as a young man, and the dream about the stairway going up to heaven with angels walking up and down on the stairway to heaven. Joseph told his father that he had brought his two sons with him so that Jacob could bless them. Jacob said to bring them close to him. Then he put his arms around them and he kissed them, and he asked God to help them. What a happy day this was for Jacob and Joseph and the two boys. Then Israel called in all his other sons, and he blessed each one of them. He told them that he was going to die, but that God would be with them and bring them back to the land of Canaan. He commanded his sons to take his body back and bury it in the same cave where his grandfather Abraham was buried, and his grandmother Sarah, and his father and mother Isaac and Rebekah, and his wife Leah. When Jacob had finished all that he had to say to his sons, he lay back in his bed and he died. Joseph put his face down to his father's face, and he wept over him, and he kissed him. Then he commanded the servants to embalm his father. This meant to put spices and other things into his body to prepare it for burial. All the Egyptians mourned for him for 70 days. Joseph told Pharaoh that his father had made him a promise not to bury him in Egypt, but to bury him back in Canaan. So Pharaoh granted him permission to leave the country for a while. Joseph and his brothers went up to Canaan to bury their father, and many of Pharaoh's government officials and other wealthy men from the land of Egypt went with them. After the funeral, Joseph's brothers were afraid. They thought that now, with their father dead and unable to defend them, that Joseph would surely punish them for all the bad things that they had done to him. They sent a message to him saying that before their father had died, he had expressed the hope that Joseph would forgive them. When Joseph heard this, he cried, for he knew they were afraid of him. His brothers now came and fell down before him and said, "Don't kill us, we will be your slaves." But he told them not to be afraid, for though they had wanted to hurt him by selling him as a slave, yet God had turned harm into good by putting him in Egypt, where he could save many people from starving to death from the famine. And he spoke kindly to them, and he comforted them. Joseph was in Egypt all the rest of his life, and he lived to see the birth of his great-grandchildren. But after many years he sent for his brothers and told them that the time had come for him to die. He asked that his bones be taken to Canaan when God took his nation of Israel back there again. This didn't happen for 400 years, but when Moses led the people of Israel back into the promised land of Canaan, he took along Joseph's bones, just as Joseph had requested. So Joseph died when he was 110 years old, and his body was embalmed and put into a coffin in Egypt. And that's the end of story number 27, which is Jacob blesses his children. We'll see you next time for another story on Taylor's Bible Storybook. Bye-bye.